name is Lindsay Walker. I am the Senior Assistant Dean for International Academic Programs and Services. And on behalf of Dr. Jun Liu and the Office of Global Affairs, we welcome you to our Global Forum featuring St. Petersburg, which also just happens to be the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution.
Give it up.
I think so. So today's forum will be moderated by Dr. John Frederick Balin. Dr. Balin is a professor of linguistics here at Stony Brook University and the director of the Linguistics PhD program. He's been at Stony Brook since 1994 and engaged in international education with Russia prior to that. He started his work in international education by arranging the first ever visit of a U.S. girls' high school soccer team to the Soviet Union in 1989, and by bringing together high school students from Kiev, Ukraine, and Concord, Massachusetts in a joint theatrical production in 1990. In the 1990s, he created the Petro Teach High School teaching exchange program for U.S. college graduates and founded the American Language Center in St. Petersburg in 1994, one of Russia's first intensive English programs for adults. While on a Fulbright teaching in linguistics in Moscow and St. Petersburg in 2002 and 2003, he and St. Petersburg State University Professor of American Studies, Professor Anna A. Maslenikova, created the NYI Summer Institute in St. Petersburg with the support from the Fulbright program and the U.S. Consulate in St. Petersburg, as well as an accompanying study abroad opportunities for SUNY students. The programs are now entering their 16th year in existence. In 2006, he founded the SUNY Center in St. Petersburg that still serves as the focal point for SUNY's presence in Russia. From 2007 to 2009, he directed the State Department's Critical Languages Scholarship Program for Russian, which developed into the Intensive Russian Language Immersion Program, known as ACLI, that Stony Brook now offers in St. Petersburg. In 2013, the SUNY Central Administration created the Russia Programs Network and asked Dr. Balin to direct it, with the goal of energizing other SUNY campuses to seek partnerships in international education with Russian peer institutions. These programs have sent over 100 Stony Brook and SUNY students to Russia and brought many Russian students to Stony Brook, both as exchange students as well as PhD students. It has also created an international hub of learning on the ground in St. Petersburg. In addition to student opportunities, the programs have also allowed many Stony Brook faculty to expand their horizons while teaching in Russia. So on behalf of Global Affairs and International Academic Programs, we thank you for your support and your investment in promoting global learning through study abroad. So John had this great idea to give as many people as possible an opportunity to talk about their experiences in St. Petersburg. So we have a lot of incredible speakers and those that will be sharing with you, so you can buckle your seatbelts and get ready for a really engaging next hour to hour and a half focused on St. Petersburg and the 100-year anniversary of the Russian Revolution.
Thank you. And if we get through everything that we have on this program in the amount of time that we have, it'll be something of an accomplishment. So I don't want to waste much time on that. The people sitting up here there is some overlap between the people sitting up here and the people who are on the poster. And there's some overlap between the people who are between the people in the audience and the people who are listed on the screen, but I think this is complete, which are former faculty, student, graduate student, undergraduate student, and faculty participants in our programs. There really is no principal distinction between the ones who happen to get their face on this poster and the ones who didn't. So I think there was only room for 6 faces. So that's how it goes. The first thing that I want to do is just say a couple of words about St. Petersburg. And St. Petersburg, for those who haven't been there, or don't necessarily know, St. Petersburg has been an inspirational place since the moment it was founded in 1703. It has been the center of Russian classical culture, consistently interwoven with political activism, cultural innovations, deep scientific advancement, and the constant pressure of a restive population accustomed to being surrounded by stunning beauty and continuous and sometimes subversive innovation in the arts and sciences. And all of this is inextricably intertwined with the canals and the embankments and the courtyards and the alleyways and the bridges and the rooftops and the long summer nights that sets Peter, as they call it, apart from all its peer cities, both within Russia and beyond. And for us, working in international programs, this beauty and this heritage has provided an incredible opportunity to bridge obvious political divides and to create this kind of peer-to-peer academic partnerships and programs that have exposed hundreds of students to each other and to faculty in this whole wide range of disciplines and interdisciplines, people from all over the world. And it's allowed our students here and faculty to experience something similar to what I experienced, I think similar in 1983, in my first time in the Soviet Union, when one of the first cultural events I experienced was an underground performance of Dostoevsky's The Idiot, which consisted of one woman's abstract solo breakdance to some kind of industrial music in a basement, in a performance space. And the connection to Dostoevsky's The Idiot was somewhat metaphorical. And this sort of exposed to me that immediately it taught me how much stronger these kind of avant-garde and classical cultural roots of this city and its people are than can be reached by the kind of directives of some political culture, whether it's a Soviet culture, an anti-Soviet culture, a post-Soviet culture, political culture. I just want to thank Junlu and Lindsay and the whole team at IAPS for providing us the opportunity to bring together a lot of different people from a lot of different fields here at Stony Brook who have been either formed for life by interacting with this city or from this city, or who have been temporarily touched by the magic of this place and its storied history. Now, the first thing we have to do here, I thought I would throw up there the names of a few people you may or may not have heard of who were born in St. Petersburg. I won't spend much time on this, so we can post the slides for them to study carefully later, right? And some other people who spent a significant portion or an important portion of their life in St. Petersburg. I just want to linger on one name on the original list, which I find is very interesting, which is Grigory Perelman, who is a mathematician from St. Petersburg, who solved the Poincaré conjecture, a thing that could never be solved. He solved it in his mother's kitchen in St. Petersburg, and then he turned down all the huge international mathematics prizes that were awarded to him as a result of having done this work because he didn't want to leave St. Petersburg. But he did spend 1992 at Stony Brook, at a much earlier point in his career. So we take great pride in that. Right? I had nothing to do with it. It's the 100th anniversary, and when we chose this date, I had to choose, there's various of these events happening this fall. We chose this date kind of randomly. We chose a date in October. It seemed like a good idea. And then only later did I realize that it was not only October 2017, 100 years from the revolution, the October Revolution, but it's October 25th, 2017, which is the exact day of the October Revolution. And not only that, it was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday in 1917. We know that because in the clip that I'm about to show you from Eisenstein's famous film called October, 10 Days That Shook the World, which I'm going to show you 4 minutes of this film, the date, October 25th, comes up and it says Wednesday in Russian. So here's what you should notice in this film. First of all, Eisenstein, this is absolutely avant-garde stuff with montage. This was made in 90 years ago on the 10th anniversary of the October Revolution. It was made to celebrate the glory of October and all of that. And it created this sort of myth of this massive public uprising, storming of the Winter Palace, eliminating the provisional government, taking over as a spontaneous revolution that in that form, apparently, nothing like that ever happened. But this is the image of it that we have, and we have that image because of this Eisenstein film. Film studies people talk about this film at great length. I just wanted to give you a flavor of it to show you these 4 minutes. But there are two things that are really cute that you should notice when it goes by. One of them is when they show the clocks, they'll show New York briefly. And the clock in New York, I believe it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is exactly what time it is. And the other is, there's this moment where they're all clapping hysterically and the provisional government has been deposed. It's the last 4 minutes of the movie, the end of the movie. And at this moment, there's a moment where there's this old man, kind of peasant-looking man who's sleeping. And he hears all the clapping and wakes up. And this is my favorite moment in the movie because it's the awakening of the Russian peasantry, right? So anyway, if we can go now to the clip of the film, we'll see how we're doing on the technology side. Please enjoy 4 minutes of October 10 Days That Shook the World, which will happen in a second. Right? And we'll turn the light off. the peasantry.
They woke up.
They woke up.
They're making the socialist state.
Right.
Look how successful they've been.
You're right, exactly. So we're 10 minutes behind schedule already, that's gonna be fine. We will catch it up. I would like to introduce now someone who I met in St. Petersburg 32 years ago, I believe, in 1985, when I was a student, exchange student there, and I met Alexei Yurchak, who was a student, I think, in a polytechnical institute of some sort, was studying languages with flashcards with Hungarian words on one side and Spanish words on the other side, and who has now become the leading expert in cultural anthropology. His book, famous book, Everything Was Forever Until It Was No More, is now so famous that they're naming beers after it. We found a pub in Brooklyn that serves beer by that name, and is absolutely seminal work in the area of cultural anthropology. His new project is on something quite different, which is Lenin's body preservation, and he's a St. Petersburg native, so if the technology does not let us down, we'll now have a short presentation from Professor Alexei Yurchak from Berkeley. We will. I know we will.
I have no idea whether anyone can hear me because I don't see or hear anything, but hopefully you can, and in that case, hello everyone. I'm going to talk about St. Petersburg and a legacy of the revolution, which is 100 years old today, and the legacy of Lenin, who was the leader of the revolution. And I'm calling from another revolutionary city, from Paris, which is behind me, behind that window. Can you send me some feedback that this is in fact live, because I don't hear or see anything at all? Would be great. Thank you. Okay. I just got a message, we see you. Okay. All right, so I would like to talk about this revolutionary legacy which has shaped St. Petersburg in many ways. It continues to shape it, even though it's no longer a Soviet city. So on October 25th, 1917, as you know, the revolution happened, and it took place in that city, and the reason was quite clear. It was the seat of the imperial power. The palace of the Tsar was there, and with all the imperial institutions of the imperial state. The first revolution of February 1917, which overthrew the Tsar, didn't quite change the structure of the state. The republic which came in its place in many ways inherited some institutional structure. So when the Bolsheviks led the 1917 revolution, which some people prefer to call coup, I still prefer the word revolution, they overthrew that republic and established a proletarian dictatorship in a socialist or communist state. And they very quickly, within a few months, moved the capital to Moscow. That was the first or the second way in which the city of St. Petersburg was affected by this revolution. It actually is a paradox. It was the city which created the revolution, hosted the revolution, in many ways made it, and as a result of that, it lost its status as the capital almost right away. And the reason was clear, that the Bolshevik government didn't want to inherit a symbolic link to that imperial capital, to the palace and all the institutions, and thousands of the bureaucrats who worked in that government. They wanted really to establish something completely new, and they moved to Moscow. There were many other reasons as well, in which I will not go, but another important one was that they wanted to create this big kind of utopian capital of the proletariat, future communist capital, and Moscow being a very old city, which developed over centuries, somehow felt as a much better space, which it lent itself better for the big urban projects of building a completely new city, a communist metropolis. Whereas St. Petersburg is a very classical city. It was built, it's a modern city, it was built fast, it's only over 300 years old. And it was difficult to convert that, the city of palaces, of beautiful canals, of beautiful churches and big vistas, into a proletarian city. So that was another reason. And in 1924, when Lenin was already living in Moscow and leading this new Soviet government, he fell ill in the early 20s, and in 1924, at a fairly early age, young age of 53, he died. This affected the city of St. Petersburg again. It was renamed Leningrad. And it remained Leningrad from 1924 until 1991. 1991 was, of course, the year when the Soviet Union ceased to exist as a state. It disintegrated into 15 states. The communist project was abandoned after the reforms of Gorbachev. And St. Petersburg was renamed again St. Petersburg from Leningrad. So it's a city which constantly is affected by its revolutionary history, both because of its imperial past. It was the center of the revolution, then it was renamed after Lenin as the center of the revolution, having lost its capital status, and then after the Soviet period, again was renamed St. Petersburg because the original revolution was abandoned. It's an interesting thing that today St. Petersburg still didn't regain its capital status, of course. The capital was in Moscow and remains in Moscow. The Soviet state really affected the history in this way. And there are many monuments to Lenin in St. Petersburg because it was the seat of the revolution. But the main monument to Lenin is located in Moscow. After he died, there was an unexpected, somewhat unexpected, mass pilgrimage to the palace of the Soviets in Moscow, where Lenin lay in state before the funeral. So many people in fact came. It was decided by the party leadership to extend the process of bidding farewell to Lenin. So they had to bury Lenin after a few days, but they buried him in an open casket, and soon he was embalmed. And this unique procedure, which no one knew whether it will succeed, actually was quite successful. So for 93 years now, Lenin's body remains lying in state, as if he's still waiting for the funeral, as if he's still being visited by people who bid farewell to him after his death. And he looks the same as he looked on the day when he died. It's very difficult now to change that, to actually bury Lenin, because many people would be feeling that it's kind of a blasphemous act, it's rewriting whole history. Some people would think that it admits that the Soviet history was just one big mistake, which of course no country wants to admit. You can think about former colonial and states which had slavery. They would not necessarily want to rewrite history completely. And it's the same in Russia. There is a certain reluctance to making this kind of big gesture, even though many people would probably support burying Lenin today. It's also quite interesting that today the city of St. Petersburg tries to distance itself from its revolutionary history. It's not as present anymore. You can see some monuments, but the city has become a city of this counterculture, of interesting music scene about which John can tell you very much, an interesting theatrical scene. It is quite distant from financial centers of Moscow, from the government, and for that reason, it could host that counterculture, because it was kind of in the shadow of this big other, which was Moscow and its political power. So that's what I wanted to tell you. I don't know that I have a very limited time, so you should visit St. Petersburg. It's a gorgeous city. It really retained. One thing I forgot to say is that precisely because it lost its capital status and it wasn't chosen as a city of the proletarian future, unlike Moscow, it managed to retain a lot of its kind of imperial glamour and a lot of its very beautiful architectural identity. So for that reason, we are thankful that it was actually, the capital was moved. So that's all from me, and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know, Joshua, if you can hear me, but thank you. And I hope to see you soon in St. Petersburg or otherwise. He's now working on the topic of the science involved in maintaining Lenin's body in that original form, and he's writing a book about that, which I hope we'll be seeing sometime in the next year or so, but we'll let you know. So thanks again to Alexei. And now now is my opportunity to catch up on the schedule, because I want to give you a very brief overview of some of our programs in St. Petersburg. So if we can go back to the PowerPoint where I was, I will show you that. Okay. So there is a thing called the Russian Programs Network, which is a SUNY-wide initiative that Lindsay mentioned. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what the SUNY Russian Programs Network has been involved in for the last several years. The idea that we had was that having a physical center in Moscow that SUNY has had for many years, it was not very active when I lived there 15 years ago now, could be better replaced by a kind of virtual network between SUNY campuses and Russian institutions, and that's what we've tried to implement. There is a newsletter that looks like this, which is out front on the activities of the SUNY Russian Programs Network. If you're welcome to pick one up on your way out, which talks in more detail about these things. This map shows you all 16 of the SUNY campuses have been involved in one or more of our activities, which I will run through very quickly. You can read about them in more detail there. But first, unfortunately, Dr. Liu is not with us today because he's traveling. But we extended our relationship with our primary partner, St. Petersburg State University, for another 5 years. Last summer of 16, he was there to cut the ribbon with his counterpart from St. Petersburg State University and to open our summer school. We have other partnerships in St. Petersburg. We have other partnerships in Russia. I'm not going to talk about those in great detail today. The primary directions that the RPN is involved in are creating partnerships between the SUNY helping the SUNY campuses to create their own partnerships with Russian institutions, which is not so easy to do. And that's part of the reason that we exist and that we're trying to be helpful, because of the kind of embedded capacity that we have in Russia. Because just for any of you who have ever gone to Russia and tried to get a visa, especially if it wasn't a tourist visa, you know how hard things can be, and that's just on the most basic level. So we are trying to facilitate those partnerships in various ways. One of the primary things that we've done is we've opened a SUNY faculty exchange where faculty from SUNY campuses go, and various SUNY campuses, they're all open to apply for this and to go and lecture in their field during the academic year, meet students, meet their peers, and engage in some kind of joint projects and so on. We've facilitated 3 international conferences. We've also tried to do some sharing of resources within the SUNY system, in particular with some distance learning courses in heritage Russian language. The big project is our international summer school, which is going into its 16th year this summer. And many of the people here are going to talk about their experience at that school. And we've created study abroad. We have 2 study abroad summer programs and an exchange program for SUNY students to go to St. Petersburg for a summer or a semester or an academic year. And we also have exchanges in the other direction. So that was that. Now these, when it comes to the faculty exchange, these are the 17 SUNY faculty members from 13 different campuses, if I counted correctly, who have gone and lectured in St. Petersburg in a range of fields that you can see the fields, and you can see and this is beyond the Summer Institute. That's a separate thing. This is a special award that we're able to offer thanks to the SUNY Central Administration support. And we'll be continuing to offer it, and you may, if you're faculty, you may see an opportunity come your way to apply for this, to go over and lecture, meet students and faculty in your field. These are the 3 conferences that we've been part of. 2 of them have led to published volumes. One of them was held at in Stony Brook, the Future of Post-Socialism Symposium, and the other 2 were held in St. Petersburg. And we either co-sponsored or sent speakers to, or otherwise tried to help with the international component of those. The distance learning courses, this is Dr. Gishirik, who's a Russian language lecturer here at Stony Brook, who's offered her heritage courses by distance technology live with SUNY students from other campuses, which is a project that we've been involved in for 3 years. Now, very briefly about the Summer Institute. So the Summer Institute that we hold, which is called NYI, it's the New York St. In New York, it's called, here at Stony Brook, it's called the New York St. Petersburg Institute of Linguistics, Cognition, and Culture. In St. Petersburg, it's called the St. Petersburg, New York Institute of Linguistics, Cognition, and Culture. Very important distinction for them, for us, who we all want to have our name first. This is a joint project that we started. Anna Maslikova and I started in 2003 when I was there on Fulbright. This was before we started. Right? We look young and innocent. And it is going into its 16th summer. I think we never would have imagined that it would have gone that far. The idea was to bring together students from both countries and faculty from both countries. It turns out to have expanded to many more countries than just Russia and the United States. We cover a wide range of fields in the humanities and social sciences, especially interdisciplinary fields that don't have a natural home in the Russian curriculum, in our curriculum in many cases. And so this is an opportunity for people to cut across discipline boundaries, but also to cut across national boundaries, levels. We have undergraduates and graduate students and faculty working together. These are some of our posters from the recent years. I always put this slide up. These are the countries from which students have attended our institute. I think it speaks for itself. 55 countries. It's become, there's really nothing like it on the ground in St. Petersburg. I don't really know things like it anywhere. It's become a very international a site for people, so mostly undergraduate students, some graduate students, to study together in the same classroom. And you're talking about anything from cultural anthropology to language and so on, and cultural political issues also, to have that mixed classroom with people, with your peers who are really not only immigrants from another country, the mixing that we have here, but actually based in those countries and bringing all of those traditions together for this 3-week institute. The faculty, these are just 2017 alone was our most diverse year. We had students from 26 countries attending the institute this past summer. The ones in red were the countries that were new this year for us. So we hadn't had students from those countries in previous years. Uruguay, we broke into the South American market. This is what the school has about 120 students in each session, and it gives you a sense of what it looks like. There's a linguistics class, or an introduction to syntax. We're now being held in the Bobrinsky Palace, which is an absolutely beautiful building. I still can't believe that they let us hold this school in this place. So when you come to St. Petersburg, you'll see. We were across the river at the philological faculty for many, many years, but for the last 3 or 4 years, we have been in this beautiful location. It's a nice place to hold the school. So this is one of our linguistics classes. This is one of our cultural studies classes. These are, and Russian, we have Russian students from all over Russia and the former Soviet Union. So if you haven't heard of some of these cities, it's okay, I haven't heard of them all either. But that is, and apparently this list is very incomplete, and when we show this list right at the opening, many people are unhappy that their city has failed to do this. So I think we've actually broken 70, but we just don't have the data. The faculty come from SUNY campuses, from Stony Brook, from a lot of other American institutions listed there, and many people have done it more than one time, and from many European institutions as well. So we've had a lot of diversity among the faculty as well. Our faculty in 2017, this past summer, represented these 16 countries, but you have to count the USSR and Yugoslavia. That's okay, you can count them because they were born there. Right? Those countries no longer exist, but the people on the faculty still represent those countries, right? Do they not? So we count these things very generously to try to make these numbers look as good as possible. But you get the point. Sorry, there's one of our faculty members sitting at this table, teaching, giving a lecture. It's a very dynamic lecture this summer. Faculty from Stony Brook, from 10 different Stony Brook units have departments have taught at the school over the years, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. And some of these people are here with us today. Peter Caravetta is somewhere in the audience. Hi, Peter. Isabella Kalinowska is here somewhere. You can wave too. Hi, Isa. Heidi Hutton was not able to make it, and then we also have John Drury, Bob Hoberman, and Bob Priest with us up on the stage. These, I would just like to, you have to run through the things for all of this. It would not be possible without the help of a lot of different people. I will not read through this in detail because it would take us too long. We have an incredible staff who make this school possible, and one of our staff members is here with us today, Lena, stand up. Lena Zipsova. She's our liaison to the real internal bureaucracy at St. Petersburg State University, which, if you think SUNY bureaucracy is bad, you're right. This is not worse, it's just different, and when the two of them try to connect, it's almost impossible, and Lena single-handedly makes it possible for 60, this year, I think we issued something like 60 non-tourist visas to students and faculty to attend the school from all over the world, which is an absolutely impossible job. And she is here to visit, she's with us today, so it's great to have you. This is the staff and some of their children from the summer school. And so that's from the point of view of the on-the-ground school in St. Petersburg, but it's also a study abroad opportunity for Stony Brook students, and we have two study abroad summer programs. One of them is intensive Russian language, which is intensive Russian language, and we have Emily Carl, the only ACLI person here. One of the students who did it this summer is going to tell you a little bit about it a little bit later. And we have the other program, and this is, have you seen these? Has anybody seen these? This is the head posters for 2018. It's great. And we also have the program which is not for Russian, the one that is for students who do not have to speak any Russian, where they participate in the large summer institute, but they also have their own program, especially with internships, where they intern in a wide variety, either teaching or volunteering with city services or working with local journalists and so on. And we have quite a few people who've been on that program in the audience also today. And so what I want to do actually is just now turn it over to Megan Lazaro, who is someone from that Explore St. Petersburg program, who is going to show us a slideshow on the beauty of St. Petersburg, which she created with the help of some of her friends, and I get to count myself in that category. And we'll hear from Megan a little bit later on, so right now I think we're just going to show the slides. And we can have some music while we show the slides from the same place where we were. I think they have automatic timings. Can we turn the lights off also while we watch them? Is that possible?
Никогда не слышал этой музыки регги. Но Лев Толстой писал тексты исключительно для музыки регги. Yeah. У нас был ящик со святым, но с него сбили пломбы. А где-то внутри все равно поют мутант-соловей. Известно, что душа имеет силу ядерной бомбы, но вокруг нее пляжут лама, священники, рэпи безнадежных степей. Извиняйте, дядьку, если что-то случилось, о чем уже давно было света. Это потому, что зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум. Все женщины знают, что ритм как солнце, а мы вокруг него как планеты. Это ничего, зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум. Боже мой, в какой же дыре живет мое племя? ей на лбу. Но еще 4 года и на часах будет новое время. Один мой знакомый, он знает, он в курсе, он скажет, что оно придет снова. Извиняйте дядьку, если что-то случилось, о чем уже давно было света. Это потому, что зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум. Все женщины знают, что ритм как солнце, а мы вокруг него как планеты. Это ничего, зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум. Извиняйте, дядьку, если что-то случилось, о чем уже давно было света. Это потому, что зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум. Все женщины знают, что ритм как солнце, а мы вокруг него как планеты. Это ничего, зум-зум-зум-зум-зум-зум.
Смотри, как течет река, ее не поймать ни в сеть, ни рукой. Она безымянна, ведь имя есть лишь у ее берегов. Забудь свое имя и стань рекой.
Thank you. Okay, now, what's next? So now we will turn it over to a couple of the faculty members here who have taught at the summer school, and I just will take them in order, so we can start with Bob Kreis, who's chair of the philosophy department, who taught with us in 2012.
Should I come up there?
Whatever you want to do, you can use that microphone and just do it from there. If you prefer, you want to come up here. Or your clicker, of course. So do we have Bob Kreis's PowerPoint? I think so. It'll come in a second.
Okay, well, let me tell you how much fun I had in St. Petersburg. I was there in 2012. I had gone to see, I had just done some research on studying how the language and imagery of quantum mechanics migrated from the laboratory into popular culture, and I wanted to see if that had happened in Russia, and it had. But while I was there, I discovered a new research subject. I had heard of the Russian scientist Mikhail Lomonosov, who had been a peasant, but he went on to, he's known to every Russian citizen. There are lots of stories about him that he had discovered the atmosphere of Venus, that he had built the first model helicopter. You know, Leonardo just did designs, but he discovered absolute zero. He discovered the law of conservation of mass. He had created Russia's first university. He had built Russia's first chemical laboratory. But he was virtually unknown outside Russia in the United States, where historians tended to view all these stories as being like Soviet propaganda, another Russian conspiracy. But it turns out it's all true. And he did most of the work just a few buildings away from the Institute at the, what was then the St. Petersburg Academy of Sciences, now the Kunstkammer. And when you go, you've got to see this building. The first two floors are the Chamber of Curiosities, which is how you did science in those days. It had weird abnormal stuff like fetuses with two heads and things like that. But on the third floor, there's a museum to Lomonosov, where they have things like, on the top floor they did the original astronomical observations, but on the third floor there's a museum, and it has things, instruments from Lomonosov's laboratory, and down here a model of his chemical laboratory. And just a building or so away from the Institute is his, oh, did I mention that he studied mosaics and designed mosaics and built a mosaic factory? There's a mosaic which is in the Russian Academy of Sciences. This is Lomonosov's most famous mosaic. And while I was at the Institute, a Russian scientist who had read almost all of Lomonosov's works persuaded me to jump on a plane right after the Institute, fly north for an hour to see where Lomonosov was born, which turns out to be this incredibly remote area called Arkhangelsk, which is where people used to go in the 18th century, in 19th century, to go off for trips to the Arctic Circle. That's where Lomonosov was born. 3 hours in the winter, 3 hours of sunlight. The young Lomonosov had actually walked when he was 19. He left home, walked to Moscow and then St. Petersburg to get a better education. And while I was there in Arkhangelsk, I got a very special souvenir, which is a copy of the miniature felt boots, which are modeled from the leather boots that he wore when he did this incredible journey. This is the kind of thing that drives Western historians of science crazy, because it smacks of hagiography and myth-making, and it is, but myths are a part of the history of science. So, but anyway, while I became so fascinated by this person that I joined up with this, with my friend Vladimir Shiltsov, and we've written a number of articles together, including this one, which comes out next month in the Nuovo Saggiatore. So all this happened would not have happened but for the Institute. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm Bob Hoberman. I taught at the Institute for 3 summers, which already maybe I don't need to say more than that, because it was such a great experience. I kept coming back. Watching the pictures reminded me of a moment on the first day of my 2nd summer. Many of you probably have lived in an unfamiliar or foreign city. It's quite a different experience from being a tourist there. Even if you're only 2 or 3 weeks, you start and you're living there like someone who lives there. It's a very different feeling that you get. The first day of my 2nd summer, I decided to walk from the apartment where I was staying to the university. It was about a half an hour walk. I just wanted to kind of get the feel of the city again. And as I got to the bridge across the river, on one side is the Hermitage Museum that you saw in the slides, world-famous museum, and the other side is the university. I got to the bridge and I said, I know this place. I've walked across that bridge so many times, and it's a feeling like this was a little bit, for a few weeks, a home of mine. I taught courses that were compressed versions of courses that I've taught here, but it's a very different experience when you have, for instance, I taught a course called Language and Culture in the Middle East. And it's a very different experience when you have students from many countries who come to thinking about the Middle East with very different preconceptions and different experiences. If you have in the class students, and this is from my other courses as well, but if you have class with a student who speaks Tatar, which is a Turkic language spoken very widely in Russia, they have a different relationship with the Middle East than Americans and then other Russians. If you're teaching linguistics and you have students who studied mathematics in Italy or psychology in Sweden or linguistics in Belarus, it's a very different kind of thing. People come with different attitudes, training, frame of mind, and so on. Part of the great experience that I had was with interactions with faculty, both other faculty at the Institute. I attended classes. I learned a little bit of advanced syntax and semantics that I never would have come into contact with, even though it's taught by people down the hall from me in my department here. But I attended classes, and it was wonderful. I attended other cultural activities that the Institute arranges. There are I don't know if you still do this, movies most weeknights that come with a discussion and presentation, international movies from different countries that I would really not see otherwise, lectures by people from far and wide. I also interacted with faculty from St. Petersburg who were not part of the Institute, but because we had common interests, we got together and talked. I met with people who teach Arabic in St. Petersburg, and we're working on a database of information from Arabic dialects that they worked on that Americans are not working on because they tend to go to different regions. Just some examples there. I met the director of the Department of the Academy of Sciences, Russian Academy of Sciences, the director of the Division of Hebrew and Jewish Books and Manuscripts. And he showed me incredible things. Just went to the building that houses that department and pulled out incredible things that were collected during the Russian Empire and preserved in the Academy of Sciences that you could never see here, and talk about them and discuss them with the guy who has really been the only researcher to examine them and publish about them. Yeah, so maybe the main thing in addition that I want to say is that the Institute, besides its courses, provides a whole society and culture for the people who are participating in it. I mentioned films. You also go out for beer with students and faculty in the program. You socialize. There was a time when a group of the students and some other faculty came to the apartment that I was living in, and we all cooked a big spaghetti dinner together. It was just all kinds of fun that's involved through this institute.
Thank you. That's very good.
I run an experimental linguistics lab here in the Department of Linguistics, and I do research here using electrophysiology to connect with cognitive neuroscience with what linguists think about knowledge of language. Some of the things that Bob just said are things that I could repeat in different kind of ways. This institute is something that you have to go and do, and the experience of being there, I imagine, is not much like the experience of going there, say, as a tourist. This is an extremely rich environment. So if you can, I don't know if John can put the picture back up even, but the physical location of the actual institute in this palace is itself a kind of inspiring environment. So you're in these very beautiful, high-ceilinged rooms, and then there's a collection of these, and next door to a room where a famous linguist is teaching a class on introductory morphology, so the theory of the structure of words. Next door, right, is maybe a class that's discussing Islam and feminism, right? What I think is for me the most interesting and amazing part of the NYI scene there in St. Petersburg is this combination of the linguistics and cognition part of the institute with the cultural side. This makes for an extremely rich environment. So if you can imagine, so for other things that were going on there on the linguistics and cognition side, there was a beautiful class taught by Marina Kolodina from St. Petersburg, and I think she's also now here at SUNY Binghamton maybe, on attention and consciousness and the relevant history of the ideas from neuroscience. Advanced seminars in linguistics and syntactic theory. I sat in briefly on a lovely course by Ulysses Mejias. It was from SUNY Oswego. It's entitled something like Data, Capitalism and Democracy. The day that I went in, they were reading and discussing a short essay some of you may know by Harry Frankfurt called On Bullshit. And a fantastic discussion with a really diverse range of students from all over the planet on questions about fake news and social media and the implications for culture and politics and society. Going on next door to these linguistics classes, I can't speak highly enough about the Institute and the richness of the conversations and interactions that happen there. Faculty will quite typically go and visit the classes of the other faculty, and overall the level of the students is quite high. So this is really an outstanding place, and it's in St. Petersburg, where you got during the time of year where you've got like 19, 20 hours worth of daylight. And the classes and the whole activity of the Institute is actually starts for what I found to be a very civilized hour, given the fact that you're often up quite late and adjusting to a new sleep schedule in a strange place. But I won't shut up if you ask me about this in person, so if you'd like to have me not shut up about this, just come and approach me and I'll tell you anything you'd like to know about the Institute, from my perspective anyway. Thanks.
Okay, now we're going to try to bring up, what we're going to do now is because we do want to get to the students also. Students have a lot of short things to say. But we're going to try to bring up Barbara Savoy from SUNY Brockport. She taught with us 3 times, so in recent years, I think 2014 to 2016, but she also brought, and she's the director of the Women and Gender Study Center at SUNY Brockport. So her focus is on gender studies and sexuality studies, and you can imagine with the international mix of students that we have, what kind of discussions go on in those classes. Very interesting. And she also brought 8 or 9 of her students from SUNY Brockport, who primarily majors in her area, women and gender studies, to St. Petersburg, and they were part of the Institute. They also had internships working with, as volunteers, with local gay rights advocacy groups, which I think for them is a very interesting experience, given, differences in culture and so on with respect to these issues. But the students had an amazing experience, and if we get her in a minute, she's going to tell you just in a couple of minutes about her experience. And she's also worked with the University of Novgorod, which is a small, ancient city, a couple of hours from St. Petersburg, where she has done some online distance kind of courses with her students and their students, and some other kinds of partnerships. So she's a perfect example of how we try to facilitate smaller campuses to have these experiences and to have these partnerships. And there she is. Hi, Barb. Take it away.
Am I there?
4 minutes. You are.
Okay. Thanks. A little bit of an effort going on here. Really great to be here. Just to let you know, I've taught at NYI. I'm not really sure what John said about me because I didn't hear, but I've taught at NYI for 3 summers, starting in summer 2014, again summer 2015, and summer 2016. Different variations of courses that look at sex and gender, and just an extraordinary experience for me as a faculty member. I have an opportunity to really take questions about sex and gender identity and plug them into this global setting of where I'm teaching students from lots of different orientations and understanding about sex and gender. And they're super smart, and they're super interested, and they're grateful to be able to have this opportunity to really talk and learn about something that is not always treated the same way in their own country. This is particularly true in Russia. So it's just an extraordinary teaching opportunity, and I've learned so much. It's radically shifted the way I approach my teaching. And also the opportunity to really rub shoulders with extraordinary colleagues who are just stunning scholars in their field. And that has really been instrumental for my work here at Brockport. I've invited students and faculty to give lectures here at Brockport. And also the thing that I think John might have mentioned to you, but last summer I led a group of 8 students from Brockport who all attended the Institute, and then they also did internships. And some of them were placed in the Coming Out Center, which is analogous to our GLGBTQ centers here in the States. And that was also a really extraordinary experience for students to be able to understand and see what it's like to move around in this area of knowledge and identity in a space where there are a lot of restrictions and there's a lot of scrutiny. So just a really extraordinary experience. I've adopted literature and books that my colleagues are using that I've been introduced to in my teaching in Russia. And St. Petersburg, Russia, just amazing. I'm so in love with my time there, and just really extraordinary. Another arm for me is that I'm a COIL faculty here at Brockport. I teach a collaborative online international experience course with a colleague of mine who's a gender and sociology professor at Veliki Novgorod State University. And so I've been able to really leverage that experience, which I did before the St. Petersburg Institute, and kind of get students interested and curious about life in Russia by doing this collaborative learning partnership in my courses. And it generates interest in students wanting to study abroad to Russia. And so, yeah, it's just been an extraordinary experience. John, I'm not sure if you have any questions for me or if I can interact with you, but I'm happy to answer any questions or mention anything that I might have overlooked.
I gather that she can't hear me, but Sarah, you can tell her that we would love to, but we don't have time. So we're going to move to, because we really want to let some of the students talk now. But thank you very much, Barbara. So we're sticking with the schedule. Now we're going to turn it over to two PhD students who were NYI students before they were PhD students at Stony Brook. But now they're PhD students at Stony Brook. The first one is Alexandra Novitska, who's also a native of St. Petersburg. Take it away, Alexandra.
Oh, hi. Well, I wish I could tell you about all the fun I had in St. Petersburg, but it lasted for 26 years, so I don't think I have time. But I was a student I studied philosophy at St. Petersburg State University, and I had a strong interest in gender studies. And someone told me about that fantastic summer school where I could learn more about gender studies, so that's how I learned about the NYI. And so I was a student there for 3 years, in 2007, 8, and 9. And I can only repeat after everyone else that it's an amazing place. You go there and you meet people from everywhere. Students, professors who all come with their experiences, willing and ready to share. And you learn languages, you learn about other people's cultures, and make friends. And some of them stay with you for the rest of their lives. And what else could I say? I learned that was NYI was the place where I learned about gender studies and queer theory. That was my first entry into those fields. And several years later, when I was in the States, I reconnected by chance, actually, with a few faculty members, faculty who had taught in St. Petersburg during the time I was at NYI, and who are Stony Brook faculty, Lisa Diedrich and Victoria Hesford. They invited me to apply to the new PhD program at Stony Brook, which I did, and I was admitted, and so that's how I ended up here. And in the hindsight, it couldn't have been better, a better outcome. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I don't know what I was going to introduce. Yeah, the next one I'll introduce him so we don't get confused is Alyona Akselova, who's a PhD student in our department of linguistics. Is from Moscow.
Hi everybody. I have been to John Summer School 2 times, and I would like
No, it's okay.
and I would like to say a couple of words about it. So, one of the biggest struggles, and especially when you're an undergraduate student, is to choose your goal. To understand what are you planning to do in your life and why. I'm not going to say that in the summer school you will meet a guru that will be able to answer all your questions. You will meet a couple of them. And these are the people that are passionate about what they're doing, and each of them will give you some food for thought. And not only faculty, you'll meet students from probably at least 55 countries, and you will have experience talking to people from all over the world, and they will inspire you, even if you don't notice it. After every conversation with someone from another country, you learn something new. You know new people. To be honest, the school is a lot of work, like really a lot. And it means that you need to find some way to relax and to be inspired. St. Petersburg is a fantastic place for it. If you want to increase your level of culture and go to a museum, perfect. You're in the right place. There is Hermitage and many, many museums for each taste. After a museum, you want to have a drink and listen to live music. Awesome, you're in the right place. St. Pete is the capital of underground music, jazz, and all types of music that you can find in Russia. And maybe you're just sick of socializing. and you want to sit somewhere on the bench and read Dostoevsky, again, awesome. Maybe you will even sit on the same bench where Dostoevsky was sitting. You never know. So, just a warning, after this school you will really miss St. Pete a lot. So, 2 fantastic summers of my life I spent in St. Pete. It was like a rule. You're done with your exams, you go for 3 weeks in the school, and then you go for a month to do field work. Not really, this is how happiness looks like. But I was very confused about what to do in general with my life after I graduate. I was studying in Moscow State University before. And after numerous conversations with faculty and students in St. Pete School and NYI School, I decided that maybe I want to try to go in academia and continue my career. And after talking to many students from Stony Brook, I realized that, okay, so probably Stony Brook is the right place where to do it. So here I am now, 3rd year, I'm a student in linguistics, and I'm very happy. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
I can do the mic thing, I guess. So we're gonna just give it the mic briefly to some other people who are here. First we're still with the PhD students, right? They're hiding over here.
They're scared of you.
Yeah, right. Lei Lu, who was a TA with us last summer. Yeah, tell them about your...
Hi, I'm Lei Lu, and I wish I could have heard Aliona's warning about you're gonna miss St. Petersburg because I'm one of that person. So about the greatness of my experience this past summer, I'd like to mention 2 things. One of them is the chandeliers in the palace in NYI. Imagine discussing your favorite linguistic topic in the palace. That's just amazing. Second thing, the drawbridge that you may have seen in the slides, they are just like a scene from the movie Inception, so you gotta go there. Thanks.
We have three of our PhD students right here who have all been with us, so very briefly, tell us a little bit about that.
Hi, I'm Russell Tannenbaum. I'm a 5th year PhD student in linguistics, and I've had the great fortune of being invited to be a TA twice at the NYI in St. Petersburg, and I would do it again in a heartbeat because I absolutely love the program. I just want to say, it's one of the best things about it is that you really have these top scholars in the field there for a few weeks, and these are the people whose articles I'm reading in my classes for a couple of years, and we're making this cutting-edge research, and all of a sudden I can actually sit there and hear their new ideas and get to know them and network with them and realize that they're actually really cool, down-to-earth people. And also another thing I wanted to say is that it's a 3-week program, and fortunately it doesn't try to fit a semester's worth of work all the way into those 3 weeks, unlike some other programs out there, because if you try to do that, it's not only is it impossible, but it's kind of unpleasant. So like Aliona said, it is a lot of work, be prepared for that, but it's not too much, and I think it's just the right amount, so I think that's good.
I'm Chikak, I'm a 4th year PhD student. I went there before I started doing PhD here. I went there after I finished my master's in TESOL, but I was looking into doing more theoretical work. But I had little experience and background, and then John suggested that I go there, and I had a really good time. I really helped me intellectually, and then he really helped me get to where I am. So I really highly recommend going there.
Hello, my name's John. I'm a 2nd year PhD student. I lived in Russia for 2 years, and both of the summers that I lived there, John invited me to his summer school. And I want to make a very strong claim that it's cool that we're talking about this on the 100th anniversary of the Russian Revolution, because what John Balin has managed to do in Russia over the past decades has really revolutionized linguistics in Russia, and I don't say that lightly at all. After having gone there even just one time, it's like you're a member of this club of people who have been to NYI. And I mean, as PhD students and as academics, you go all over the country, all over the world, and there's not a single place I haven't gone where people don't know what this is. People don't know either personally, oh, I know John Balin. Oh, I know NYI. Oh, I know this person who went there. Oh, I've heard of this. Do you know this person who did that? Oh, blah, 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 blah. Right? And it's just, you get access to this immediate, like Jory was saying, this very rich community of people, and it's really such a cool environment to be part of, and it really has transformed how people from around the world interact with Russia and how Russians interact with people in the world, and I think you should go right now.
Yeah, no, wait for the summer. So now, the really important people are the undergraduates who've been on the program, and by the way, it's not all linguistics, right? That's just a little kind of, linguistics corner over here. But that means if I haven't said that, I should start with you, right? Some of the undergraduates who were with us and we have Mark also. So let's start with Mark Soul. Mark Soul gets the honor of sitting up on the stage because I think he's done this program more than anybody else alive, right? Of students. So six times? 6 times. Okay, take it away. Tell us about as an undergraduate.
Yeah, so I was sort of an unlikely person to be sitting here saying that. When I had gone the first time, I was sort of cajoled into it by one of my fellow students. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I had never traveled before. I had never even been to Canada. And my friend, she just said, well, just at least fill out the application. So if nothing else, I would at least say that. Just, if you have any curiosity about it, just at least fill out the application. It's, not like you're buying the plane ticket right then, but at least give yourself some time to start thinking about it. Just fill it out. So I did that, and after I filled it out, the inertia sort of went the other way, where I was like, yeah, I'm doing this. And it was, it started off, I was pretty unhappy the first 3 days. It was quite a shock to get adjusted to being in this strange place where I barely understood anything. I'd always had sort of a curiosity about Russia. I did study 1 semester of it before going there, and that was why my friend thought it might be a good fit, because otherwise I'm not in linguistics. I studied computer science and I work as a software developer. And as part of that, I was kind of shy and introverted and whatnot. And boom, everyone has espoused how wonderful it is there, what a magical city, what wonderful people you meet. I made many lifelong friends, both from Stony Brook, other people in Russia itself. It was so fascinating to meet people from all over the country there and all over the world. I've kept in touch with so many of them, and I would say it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I fell in love there and I went back again and again and again. Even after I stopped being an actual student, I managed to get some time from work to keep going there in the summer. There's nothing like it, going to bed at midnight and it's still sunny out, or going under these bridges, which, there's a saying that if you're if you're a tourist, you're like, wow, the bridges are opening. Whereas if you're a native and you're on the wrong side of those bridges and there's no way to get home, it's like, oh, we'll say wow, but let's just say it's a little less friendly of a word that they'll say. So if you have any, curiosity, or you just want to try something new, or you don't even know what you want to do, just fill out the application and see what happens.
Hi, my name is Emily Carl. I'm actually, I think, the one student here that went through the ACLI program. So it was the Intense Russian Language Immersion Program. It was an incredible experience. Unlike any other, it was very cool. We were in classes of we were 3 students in my class. And I want to say, like someone was saying before, they really cater to what you know. So even in the language program, they were able to cater to what we knew, and then we had intense tutoring sessions, and it was a lot of Russian in one day, but to be able to learn something and then go use it on the street 5 minutes later was one of the coolest experiences. So if anyone has any questions, it was absolutely fantastic, and I will let some of them talk about their experiences as well.
Hi guys, so my name is Chelsea. I'm actually one of the few students who isn't in a linguistics major. I'm an engineering major. So I'm here to tell you that this program is not just for linguistic majors. I think someone may have mentioned, or someone mentioned, they have the internship program. I was placed in I'm a civil engineering major, so I was placed in an urban design and architecture firm. So it was really interesting because it was stuff that I had learned in school, but I was able to apply it in different countries. So I learned the way things work there. Something that was really interesting was that the switch of the units, like their metric units, and I was like, why is this thing only like 2 inches tall? And then I realized it was a different unit. But I think everyone has spoken about how beautiful the city is, and I don't think I can exaggerate enough how beautiful it is. And with the Explore program, you really have time to like explore the city. I was so surprised with how modern everything was. Like it was so hard to find a place to go to eat because you wanted to go to every single place at once because every place was so cute and modern and also very like inexpensive, but like the quality was amazing. So yeah, you had so much time to walk around. Across from where we were staying, there was this beautiful park like with like a water, and people were doing yoga by the water. It was beautiful. So beautiful, 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 basically.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Megan. I actually went on this program because Balin had pulled me aside after class one day being like, you're studying linguistics and Russian, so you clearly have to go on this program. So I couldn't that summer. The summer after, I emailed him and I was like, all right, I'm ready now. And I went, probably the best decision I've ever made. Again, beautiful, the environment you're studying in. Some of it was completely over my head, but I had talked to people in my fields that are just above and beyond. They're like the top. I can't even explain what the environment of talking in a classroom with Russian students and American students about politics going on between those two countries today. It was an experience that I will not forget, and I want to go back because it's that incredible. So I recommend, even if you're not studying anything to do with Russia or linguistics or anything, just go.
Hi everyone, my name is Anne and I'm also studying linguistics. That's why I went on the program and it really just exceeded my expectations. Like everyone else said, the city is just an amazing, beautiful place, and I took an advanced syntax class, Discoveries and Puzzles in Syntax, and I took a beginner's semantics course. So I got to study with all these incredible scholars and it was just the most amazing summer of my life. I can't recommend it enough.
Did we miss anybody from students, faculty? Okay, well, we do have one other former faculty member from the Institute with us, Rita Nizami, who wanted to say a couple words also. So it's a nice pleasure giving us to be a speaker.
Thank you. Anne was my former student, so it was very nice to hear you speak about St. Petersburg, NYI. What an experience it was. I just can't tell you. It was like going back home for me because I have my master's degree in Russian language and literature from Moscow State University. For me, St. Petersburg is a fusion of Paris and Venice. So if you want to go to both these places, please go to St. Petersburg, and most importantly, go to NYI, because there I found such a vibrant community of so many different cultures, and there was such rich exchange among the faculty and among the students that I think it is very important that all of you, if you haven't been there, go there as soon as possible. And at the same time, I have been encouraging all my students. This semester I have students from 25 different countries, and I teach writing here. And I think I have managed to convince several of them to go to NYU next year. Thank you. NYI, I'm sorry.
We're pretty much out of time. I just wanted to say a couple of things, which is that for all the participants, if you said a word, then there's a little reception at 7 o'clock at the Hilton, and so drinks on me for making you do